Tales from the Mythos.
Eldritch horror. Prologue. The blood before the war. There are lands in this world that do not forgive the living. Ours was such a place. The Hargrove farm lay hunched beneath the Nevada sun, like a felled beast, all ribs and dust and defiance. The wind came in dry gasps. The earth cracked like old skin. The grass, what little dared grow, rose up yellow and bitter, like it regretted its own birth. Rain was no blessing, only a memory. When it came, it spat and cursed, sizzled off the stones, and left the air thick with the smell of copper and static. They gave us that land because no one else would take it. The rail lines had bent around it like it was cursed. The early settlers claimed the riverbanks, the forests, the places with promise. We were left with hard pan and ghost soil. The surveyor's map called it low yield. But the land had a name of its own, dead dirt. People in town used to whisper, "That Magnus Hargrove boy's got a storm behind his eyes." I don't think they meant it cruelly, but they didn't mean it kindly either. I was born angry. My mother swore I came into the world with fists clenched, red as a coal from the stove, eyes already scowling. I do not remember dreams that weren't fire. I do not remember sleep that wasn't a battle. My earliest memory is of my father digging. The sun had baked the soil into something closer to stone than earth, but he kept at it, shirtless, blistered, cursing between clenched teeth. The shovel's edge bent. His palms bled. Still, he dug, as if quitting would let the dirt win. The house was 2 rooms and a prayer, leaning east like it wanted to fall. In winter, frost clung to the windows like white mold. In summer, the heat pressed in like a fever with no name. We sold the piano when my sister took sick, traded it for a bottle of tonic with a green label and gold letters that promised guaranteed relief. What it gave was silence. She died with her eyes open. We buried her beneath a mesquite tree that bore no fruit. The soil was too hard for a grave, so we laid her in a shallow trench and covered her with stones. When the wind came, it took her last breath with it and never gave it back. No one cried, not from lack of love, but from drought of tears. We had already wept for the broken fence, for the mule that split its leg in a ditch, for the harvest that never grew. We had no mourning left. Only once did I see my father cry. It was night. The stove was cold. He sat at the table with an empty pot before him, staring like it was an enemy he couldn't defeat. A single tear slid down his cheek, thick as pitch, and vanished into the folds of his shirt. He never blinked. That was the moment something changed. It wasn't grief. It wasn't sorrow. It was a whisper, low and clawed and coiling. People did this to us. Not God, not wind, not chance. People who by luck or blood held power over us and saw fit to give us the ash left in their mouths. When the war drums began to beat across the ocean, I signed my name with a hand that did not shake, not for flag nor oath, but because war offered something the farm never had. I could hit something, and it would bleed. France was not a battlefield. It was a graveyard with teeth. They dropped us into the Vosges, like meat tossed into the mouth of a dying god. It was 1918, and the papers spoke of peace, but the dying had grown quieter, not fewer. Men didn't scream anymore. They just stopped. The forest was black in daylight. The soil bled when you stepped. I watched a man vanish into the mud with no scream, no farewell, just gone, like the earth was hungry and we were trespassers. We dug trenches through roots and rot. The rats grew fat on the flesh of things once brave. The gas whispered more than it hissed. The sky wept sulphur. Sleep came in half eyes and clenched jaws. I learned to listen for the silence between silences. The one that meant death had noticed you. That's where I met Bruno Corleone. He looked like a butcher and moved like a boxer, Jersey-tongued, Sicilian-souled. He said Hail Marys between shots and laughed when blood splattered his boots. We didn't bond, we synced. One night, beneath a broken shack roof with rain hitting tin like gunfire, Bruno and I fought back to back against a German patrol that came through the wire. One of them had me dead to rights, bayonet raised. Bruno tackled him before the blade found my throat, cracked the man's skull on a stone with such force the sound echoed in my teeth. Your turn next time, he panted, wiping blood from his brow. It was, and it would be. Later, as we shared a cigarette rolled from Bible pages, Genesis, I think, he looked at me through the smoke. You believe in the American dream? He asked. I struck the match with the butt of my rifle. What's that? A place where a man can raise his kids and not fear the dark knocking on his door. I watched the flame dance. A place where we decide who kneels. He didn't answer, just looked at me like I'd spoken something holy or heretical. Maybe both. The forest deepened. The trees leaned away from the path ahead, as if trying to warn us. No birds, no insects, no sound but a chewing, wet, rhythmic, behind the veil. Then came the clearing. No grass, no rot, just dirt and stone, and something waiting. The black monolith rose from the ground, like a finger pointing from a buried corpse, smooth, wet, hungry, and it spoke, not in words, in memory. My sister's breath, my mother's hands, my father's silence. It wrapped them all in one command. If you would be free of fear, then let the free know fear. Let the earth remember your name in blood. I stepped forward. The ground bit me. I bled. I did not care. Bruno seized my arm. Magnus, don't. That thing ain't for men like us. But it was too late. The trees began to scream. The Germans came like wolves with orders. I do not remember how many, only what I did. Bone, teeth, blood. Screams twisted into shapes that echoed like names I'd never spoken. I awoke covered in salt and iron. Bruno stared at me, a gash across his side. You stabbed me, he growled. I was aiming for the other guy. You got both. He tried to laugh, but it hurt. No doctors, I said. No restraints. Then I saw it. The bone, not animal, not man, long and hollow, whispering in a language I understood in my marrow. I picked it up. It was already mine. Home did not welcome me. It endured me. The farm was smaller, the house older. The wind no longer touched me. It circled, wary. My mother stepped outside, shawl clenched at her shoulders. Magnus, she breathed. I smiled. Don't worry, Mama. Everything's going to be fine. She didn't reply. We'll never go hungry again, I said. This world will feed us, or I'll make it. They didn't speak. They just held each other, like survivors clinging to the edge of a flood. and in my coat, against my chest, the bone twitched, like a second heart, like it remembered me. Chapter 1. Steel for Salt. They say grief turns a man soft, that it breaks the edge from his voice, hollows his bones, and teaches him to weep. But grief, when it came to me, did not whisper. It howled. I did not shatter when Lucan burned. I did not kneel, nor tear at my robes, nor scream to the heavens. I stood, I watched, and then I turned to iron. A shanty of Amun-Ra, sun priest, prophet, sovereign of golden flame, lifted one hand, and in doing so, condemned my son. Sand rose like a storm obeying its god, wrapping Lucan in a sphere of heat and shimmer. His fists pounded the glass from within. His mouth formed my name, but I heard nothing. The spell devoured sound. He searched my eyes for salvation. All I had to offer him was vengeance. They called it sacrifice. I call it war. The war chamber beneath Arkham Cathedral was carved in secret, built not with tools, but with fear. Stone walls veined with salt and soot. No windows, no clocks, just ancient maps and scrying glass, bloodied ink pots and iron styluses shaped like claws. The room was quiet, like a lung just after its last breath. At the head of it stood the first sovereign of the American Empire, Magnus Hargrove, my father. He wore a suit of deep, blood-red wool, tailored sharp as any sword, its seams stiff with regal discipline, its shade neither bright nor muted, but the precise hue of clotting. The color spoke of bloodlines and dominion. He needed no crown. His presence ruled without it. He stood like a blade driven into the earth. Silas stood at his side, brother to me in name and blood, though not in spirit. He was leaner than I, less tempered, but full of quiet fire. Where I raged, he simmered. Where I bled, he listened. Their eyes fell on me as I entered. I did not bow. My memory is fire, I said. The blaze that took my son has eaten everything else. My wife's voice, my mother's smile, even the house I grew up in. But Lucan I remember. I stepped to the table. The maps looked like flayed skin, stretched over bone. He was my last thread to the world that made sense. And now, I did not finish. I let the silence complete the sentence. Magnus's eyes were twin furnaces, low burning, but endless. And what walks now in your skin? He asked. Ruin, I answered, and steel. Is it clean steel? It is steel that remembers. Magnus nodded once, then let it be drawn. Silas moved like ink, spilled across a ledger. He unrolled a scroll across the table, pinning each corner with relics that hissed softly. Innsmouth festers upon the shell of an older corpse, he said. Beneath it, Yehanthle, a drowned kingdom, older than empires. Beneath that, the scroll. He did not speak its name. None of us did. The living parchment lies sealed beneath coral runes and bone wards. Rites older than our war lines keep it guarded. Blood magic, deep lore, faith given shape. And we breach it how? I asked. You don't breach, Silas said. You descend. He pointed to the coastline, marked in ochre. Submersible, 8 men, American forged steel, and Empire air systems. No signals, no lights, no voice raised above breath. The sea will either let you pass or devour you whole. And once inside, you take it, he said, almost too simply. You take it and you burn your path back through whoever stands in your way. I turned to Magnus. If they resist, they will not get the chance, he said, and then, do not return without it. That night, I stood alone at the harbor's edge. The docks groaned beneath my boots. Fog crept low like a second tide. The water was black and slick, like spilled blood that had forgotten how to reflect the moon. I stared into it, and it stared back. I remembered Lucan's eyes, the way they searched for something I could not give. I am coming, I whispered, and the gods will regret what they touched. The submersible waited beneath canvas and runes, black steel, no windows, no forgiveness. Inside, 7 men waited, cloaked and masked, their breath steady beneath their rebreathers. Some may not return. I stepped onto the platform. The metal groaned. Then, his voice. Magnus stood upon the dock, like a statue left behind by war, the dark red of his coat catching no light, only shadow. You were not born for peace, he said. You were not carved for fields or hearths. You were shaped in fire to dam rivers and make the sea itself yield. Let no man steal from us and live. I turned. You do this because the world must learn what it costs to hurt a Hargrove. I sealed the hatch, the engine whispered, and the sea opened its arms. I turned back, looked at my father and the people on the dock. Steel remembers, for the Empire, and our submersible sank quietly into the dark water. Chapter 2. The Veil Beneath Her Skin. Blood has a scent the poets dare not name. It is not merely iron nor salt, nor the musk of sweat. It is something more ancient, older than kings, older than scripture. It smells like oaths broken, like the last breath drawn before the blade falls, like truth, scorched and made sacred. The chamber deep beneath Giza flickered with the light of braziers, each flame struggling against the weight of incense and memory. Smoke curled in thick tendrils, coiling around golden idols with the bodies of serpents and the eyes of gods. The air stank of cedar oil, wormroot, and burnt cloth. Each breath was a communion with old pain. Ashanti al-Ghul lay upon a bed of lion hide and scripture. His chest rose like a dying fire, uneven, reluctant, defiant. The high priest of Amun-Ra, the lord of preservation, breaker of kingdoms, silencer of stars, now wrapped in bandages inked with glyphs that hissed as they sealed his strength inside him. And I, Saphira Mourn, washed him. My hands were steady, my face expressionless, but within I was burning. The cloth in my hand soaked the blood from his side, thick and dark, clinging like memory. The basin beside me steamed with sacred oil, black as night and twice as bitter. I dipped, I wiped, I whispered. Opposite me sat Nefaria al-Ghul, his wife, his queen, his equal in cruelty, if not in light. Her fingers danced along his skin, pressing firebrands of healing into his ribs with the tenderness of a blade being sharpened. Her eyes never left her work. Not for me, not for him. Ashanti stirred. One eye opened, the other sealed with suncloth and warded silk. His gaze found mine and held, steady and full of storm. They have taken it, he breathed, voice cracked like ancient stone. The scroll. Yes, beloved, said Nefaria. Her voice was velvet, folded over iron, but they do not yet understand it. It remains locked. The sequence is yours alone. His gaze turned to me. "They may try to burn it," I said, wiping away fresh blood. "But its will is older than theirs, older than mine, older than any of us." He tried to speak again, but his body rebelled. His chest shuddered. The flames dimmed. A priestess stepped forward from the shadows, her veil red as wine, her hands pale and dry as pressed petals. "He must rest," she said. "The gods cannot speak through broken bone." Ashanti gave no protest, but his eye, his one burning, unrelenting eye, remained open as he murmured, "Find it before all gods turn to dust." We left him to rest. The corridor beyond was a tomb with fire in its lungs. Stone walls stretched like ribs toward a vaulted ceiling lined with faded suns and moons. Braziers hissed in their sconces, their flames casting shadows like spears across the floor. I walked beside Nefaria, mistress and queen, rival and mirror. "You played your part too well," she said, voice low as silk, drawn through a throat. "I was sent to seduce, not to fail. You let them breach the veil." "Then your veil was thinner than you claimed," I said. "Blame your cloth, not the blade that cut it. You forget your place." "I remember it too well." She stopped. The gold at her wrists jingled faintly, like a warning. "You will go after the scroll," she said. "Yes, Nesut Weret," I said. "I will remain. He needs more than healing. He needs vengeance." Her eyes narrowed. "You still love him." "I obey him." "You lie." I said nothing. "I will retrieve it," she said. "Whole, if I can. And if it is broken, then Innsmouth will burn." She turned to go, her robe brushing the marble like mist over water. But before she vanished into the light, she looked back once more. "If you fail him again," she said, "you will not survive your love for my husband." My chambers were cloaked in shadow. No window welcomed the sun. Tapestries hung thick upon the walls, each stitched with prophecy and threat. The air was heavy with wine, fire, and dried perfume. I stripped to the skin and knelt before the altar. Pain came quickly. My ribs shifted, my spine bent, my limbs trembled as my true form fought beneath the skin I wore. Fingers lengthened, then snapped back. Bone groaned beneath flesh. The human shape was a lie that grew heavier with each day. I reached beneath the altar. A cage waited. Inside, mice, bred for sacrifice. I took one and set it in the ash, whispered the names, called the fire. The mouse screamed, the flames danced, the altar hissed, and I was born again. I straightened, I breathed, and I was Saphira once more. But beneath the skin, something else waited, something older than names, something that remembered. The Second Ur crouched on the launch plateau, its bronze hull kissed by the last breath of dusk. Glyphs glimmered along its nose. Wings swept back like a falcon ready to dive. It was a warbird carved by priests and driven by vengeance. 4 warriors waited beneath it, clad in ancient armor, etched with the bloodlines of dynasties long buried. Each wore a helm shaped in the form of a sacred beast: jackal, ibis, serpent, falcon. Setek, eldest of them, stepped forward. Lady Mourn, destination ? Innsmouth, past the trench. Weapons, blessed and loaded. If they resist, they will not live long enough to regret it. He bowed. then turned to his kin. One dune, no drift. The warriors saluted in silence. We boarded. No hiss of hydraulics, no ritual farewell. The hatch closed like a tombstone settling into place. The desert vanished. Before the clouds swallowed us, I looked back once. There, upon the highest stair of the colonnade, stood a man cloaked in silence. Tiyog, high priest of the sealed chamber. His eyes were obsidian. He had seen what he should not all, but enough. Enough to whisper, enough to betray. Chapter 3. The Deep Remembers. Let the record show. My undoing did not come with sword or fire, nor with judgment from above. It came with stillness and a dream. She sat beside me on a porch that never was, overlooking a sea too still to live. The sky above was dull iron, the water below darker still, like a god's mirror, unpolished since the first betrayal. There was no breeze, no bird, just her and me. She wore no armor, no veil, just a coat, frayed at the cuffs. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but it rang like truth. If the world had turned another way, I said, not as a man, but as something lesser, do you think we might have sat here, without knives between us? In another tide, yes, she said, but tides turn only forward. I did not know if I loved her, but I envied her peace. I will change, I told her, not by choice, not with pride. My body is not mine anymore. She did not blink. You already have. No, I said, this is not yet the end. My lungs still remember air. My bones still mourn the sun. But every morning, the tide pulls more of me away. It began at my collarbone. Now my fingers are webbed. My ears ache with every storm. I dream in brine. Her silence was not cruel. It was final. I will change, I repeated, voice trembling now. And when I do, the man I was will drown inside what I become. She did not offer comfort. That was never her role. Behind her, the sea began to stir, not with waves, but with suggestion, a presence rising, too vast for form. I looked down. My hands had lengthened. The flesh between my fingers was thin, slick. My throat gaped and closed. My knees bent wrong. My skin shone faintly, blue and green. The porch cracked. The sea rose. I reached for her, but she was already gone. I awoke gasping brine, my mouth slick with seawater. The basin beside my bed was steaming faintly. I did not recall rising. The thirst after the dreams always came like this, salted, unholy, unending. I staggered to the mirror. I did not recognize what looked back. It is a strange thing, to write the ledger of one's unraveling. Stranger still, to discover how many pages you have already filled before realizing you are the author. 7 years. I had written them all, in ink, in blood, in regret. Year 1. The green stain at my collarbone. I said it was bruising. My ears rang during lightning storms. Year 2. It wasn't bruising. It was shedding. The skin fell away. Beneath it, slits opened. Gills. Year 3. The thirst began. I drank seawater from a flask, like a drunkard hiding his shame. No one knew. Year 4. The boots no longer fit. My toes had changed. The webbing came soft, like moss. 5. The dreams started speaking. not in words, in command. A voice. Dagon, farther below. 6. Obed began to forget his name. He clicked instead of speaking. His eyes clouded. He whispered, "Oh, Mother Hydra." 7. I stopped counting. Grace found me in the old tower, where the gulls no longer came. She carried a cup, warm root brew in cracked ceramic. Her footsteps were soft, but not hesitant. "You dreamt again," she said. "I always do." She said nothing. She didn't need to. Grace was my sister. She had been watching me decay for years, with neither pity nor judgment. I drank the brew. It tasted like rust and river water. I saw the lie again, I murmured. The world that could have been. Unity between land and sea. A world of peace, ruled not by knives, but oaths. Grace looked to the water. We all have our heresies. The land will never accept what we do, what Father Dagon requires of us. The Bay of Innsmouth is emulsified with the remains of his bidding. Do you ever wonder, I asked, if it could have ended differently? If we had listened before we fought? No, she said, because we didn't. And now, we are the wreckage. A silence passed between us, as vast as the sea. You've seen Obed, she said. He's nearly gone. He held the scroll too long, I answered. It whispers, it feeds. He was never meant to keep it. But you, I never asked for that burden. No, but the deep does not ask. It remembers. We descended into the roots of the city. The coral arches breathed as we passed beneath. The lights, faint fungi and old runes, pulsed with the rhythm of the tide above. It was not dark, but it was not light. It was below. Before us loomed Shao-Naleth, the vault that remembers nothing and reveals less. Within it, I had sealed the scroll, not to protect it, to delay it. The glyphs along the arch shimmered faintly as I passed. They remembered my hand. They recognized my blood. It's still here, Grace said. For now. And if they come, we drown it. The guard arrived. 3 shadows in sea-slick robes, their faces hidden behind masks, carved like the old sea beasts. Their tridents were carved from the bones of Leviathan. Movement, rasped one. From water, foreign, landborn. And from the sky, said another, a silver-winged vessel. Grace turned to me. 2 factions. I nodded. Empire, Amun-Ra. Do they know? They will. She placed a hand on the vault, fingers spread as if to steady the world. What now? I looked upon her, my sister, my final kin. We prepare the rites, and if they breach the sanctum, I turn to the masks, to the tide, to the vault behind me. Then let them see what it is we've become. Some transformations are chosen, others are inherited. Mine was a debt, passed down in whispers and fins. But hear me now, all who come crawling where the tide runs deepest. I did not flee the water, I faced it, and in the salt black dark, the deep remembered me. Chapter 4. The Shores of Innsmouth. The Empire made no declaration. No trumpet sounded from the tower. No banner unfurled. Only a whisper left Arkham Cathedral, and beneath it, war began. We launched under a sky blind with cloud. No moon, no stars. The sea swallowed our sub like a grave swallowing a name. No ceremony, no prayer. Just the hiss of the hatch sealing behind us, and the hum of the engine as we descended. The vessel was a relic of Empire ingenuity, black steel, belly rounded, its ribs etched with protective glyphs, salvaged from half-forgotten miskatonic vaults. It groaned as the pressure grew. The sea did not welcome us. It merely made room. We were 8 men, though we looked nothing human. Canvas diving suits clung to our flesh like wet armor. Helmets of brass and glass obscured our faces, and tubes hissed softly with each breath we stole from the deep. We were shadows inside metal coffins, each breath measured like coin spent. I took the lead. It was my burden. We dropped into water so dark it had never known fire. The cold was the first to strike, not like a blade, but like stones sinking into the marrow. It did not sting, it claimed. The water here was no longer water. It was something thicker, older, like ink poured into ink, pressed down by centuries. Our arms moved slow, our legs slower still, pushing through a current that clung like oil. The visibility was wretched, squid ink and ghost rot. What light we carried was drowned in moments, swallowed whole by blackness, so total it felt alive. Silas followed just behind me. The others fanned out, silent, burdened, vigilant, and then the dead. They floated in the murk like forgotten prayers, bodies suspended, swaying as if dreaming. Some were whole, most were not. Flesh sloughed like wet bark, faces bloated, lips peeled back from teeth. Some had uniforms, others had chains about their ankles. Some drifted in pairs, their limbs entwined as if death had mistaken them for lovers. We did not speak. We could not. But the horror pressed into our lungs like another weight. Who were they? Townsfolk? Trespassers? Warnings? We navigated between ribs and torsos, but the water was full of them. Dissolved, decayed, liquefied. Every stroke of our arms sent strands of flesh drifting. Every kick stirred someone's last breath. I felt them on my faceplate. Their skin, their hair, their stories, in the water now. Silas reached out, touched my shoulder. I turned. He pointed. Ahead, something moved. Not drift, not current. Hunger. Limbs wrapped around one of the warriors, slender, wet things, like ropes braided from muscle and madness. They coiled around his neck, his chest, his leg. He thrashed. The suit tore. Then another man screamed, but only the sea heard him. They came fast, too fast for form. Were they deep ones, shapes born of tide and curse? We could not see, only feel them. Claws, tendrils, bodies pressed close, pulling us down. I reached for my belt. A blade, small, serrated. The things seized my arms, bound my legs, clawed at my helmet. I could not see it. I did not need to. I felt it. I drove the knife into whatever gripped my thigh. Again, again. It screamed, though not with sound. Something convulsed. It let go. I hacked at the coils on my left arm. They slackened. I kicked free. But my helmet... Fingers scraped along the seal. They wanted in. With a snarl, I slashed high. Steel met wet sinew. My head rocked. I lunged upward, blade singing in the dark. I did not stop. Not until the black above turned to dim green. Not until I saw shore. 3 of us broke the surface, gasping, reeling, alive. Myself, Silas, and one other, a boy from Dakota, barely 20. His arm hung limp. The suit leaked. The harbor loomed above us, like the maw of a dead god. We crawled from the sea onto shattered stone. The ruins of Innsmouth stood silent. No torches, no voices, only that cursed, watching stillness. We lay there a moment, panting, broken. Then I rose. Silas staggered to his feet, mouth twisted. 7, he whispered. I nodded. They're all dead. They were claimed. He looked to the town. What now? I unslung my blade. My limbs still trembled. My lungs still ached. My bones still remembered the dark. Now, I said, we finish what we came for. And the sea said nothing. Chapter 5. The drowned streets of Innsmouth. We marched single file, 4 warriors at my side, sacred beasts carved into their helms. I led them. I always did. I am Saphira Mourn, blade of Amun-Ra, whisperer of the 9th seal. I did not fear Innsmouth, but I watched it. We hiked west, weapons drawn, armor muted, eyes wide. The land here was neither forest nor plain, just bramble, rock, and the smell of old fish and buried salt. The closer we came to the town, the heavier the air became, like grief, waiting. Innsmouth revealed itself slowly, like a wound unbandaged. The first signs were spirals, some scratched into the dirt, others nailed to door frames. Then came the wards, scrawled in blood or ink. No one could say. The streets were narrow, uneven, steep. The houses leaned as if too tired to stand. Windows sealed with black cloth. Chimneys long cold. No lights, no dogs, no voices. And yet, I felt them. Eyes. Uncounted. Unblinking. Watching. Setek, the jackal-helmed warrior, stepped close. Shall I call out? He whispered. No. Let the ghosts stay ghosts. We passed a door that creaked, as if stirred by breath. Nothing behind it, nothing we could see, but the others felt it too. The pressure, the dread. Innsmouth had not died. It had waited. We took a back alley that cut behind the town square. The fog thickened, veiling the lamps we dared not light. We walked in darkness, our boots tapping like funeral drums. Then came the scream. Short, wet, human. I turned. One of our warriors, the youngest, with the helm of the ibis, was gone, dragged. The rest of us ran. We found them at the docks, 3 townsmen, pale and wide-eyed, dragging the boy toward the water. Their limbs moved wrong, jerking, slapping, too fast. One held the warrior's head beneath his arm like a sack of wheat. The other 2 pulled at his legs. He fought, hard, kicked, thrashed, screamed, but the water waited. I gave no command. We leapt. The water swallowed us in one black gulp. It was not sea. It was syrup, thick as ink, warm in places, cold in others. Visibility was nothing. Taste was worse. I struck the first attacker beneath the chin, felt bone crack. Another dove for me, but Setek took him at the waist, dragging him back under. One of the townsmen clawed at my leg, webbed fingers, eyes too round, too dark. Human, yes, but becoming. We fought beneath the surface, slashing, kicking, choking. My blade found its mark. Blood clouded the water like smoke. The townsmen fled, vanishing into the deep. We surfaced, gasping. The boy still lived, but barely. His leg was torn, his helm cracked, his breath rattled. We gathered on the stone at the water's edge. The mist had thickened again. The town had gone still, not quiet, watching. I knelt beside the wounded. "You fought well," I said. He tried to speak. Only blood came. "Setek," I said, rising. "Take him, back to the Saphira. Stay with him. My lady, we cannot leave you." "You can," I said, "and you will. This is not a mission of rescue. It is recovery." He hesitated. "I command it." Setek bowed his head. "One dune, no drift. Go." They vanished into the dark. I turned to the two that remained. "The scroll is beneath this town, beneath its temples, beneath its lies." They said nothing, only nodded. We pressed forward. The streets narrowed again. The buildings leaned closer. The air thickened. Innsmouth did not sleep. It remembered. And as I stepped over the threshold into the heart of the deep, I whispered, "Innsmouth casts no shadow on the ground. It casts it on the mind." Chapter 6. Beneath the Drowned Temple. The deeper we walked, the less the world obeyed its rules. Stone twisted underfoot, arches bent at wrong angles. Water ran upward along the walls, defying gravity, clinging like veins to bone. No one spoke. Words were too small for where we were. This was not a town. It was not even a ruin. It was a threshold. Somewhere behind us, Setek stayed behind with the wounded boy. I had sent him with orders. I had sent him with honor. But in truth, I had sent him away because I knew what waited here could not be outrun. He would carry warning. We would carry consequence. The two who remained at my side, Vareth, the serpent-helmed, and Ainun, the falcon, were loyal beyond death. Neither had spoken since the docks, but their eyes watched every corner, every flicker. They felt it too. The deep was awakening. We passed under a great archway carved from barnacled coral. The runes that lined it pulsed faintly with some long-dead ritual power. Every few paces, we found the signs of a city no longer meant for surface breathers. Moss that glowed like fevered stars, bones hollowed and strung like prayer beads, carvings of beasts that had never known sun. "Is this the path?" Vareth asked, his voice a whisper. I did not answer. The path did not matter. The scroll would call us whether we walked or crawled. In a narrow corridor, a priest of the old blood stepped from the wall. He was not cloaked. He was grown from the coral. His flesh had the sheen of eels, his limbs too long, his face wrong in a dozen ways, but his eyes were human. "Daughter of dust," he said. We drew steel, but he only watched. "You have come to take what was sealed." "I've come to correct a mistake," I said. "The scroll does not belong to you." "It doesn't belong to anyone," I replied, "but I will bleed to retrieve it." He grinned, 1,000 tiny teeth gleaming. "Then bleed you shall." He stepped back into the wall and was gone. We reached a chamber vast as a drowned cathedral. Pillars of black coral reached from floor to ceiling, dripping. Murals lined the stone, depicting not war, but conversion. Men with smooth faces and wide, lidless eyes, bowing before shapes too vast to name. In one panel, a man stood beside a god. In the next, he was the god. There was no altar, only a stair. It descended into the sea. We donned our rebreathers, tested seals, checked blades. I said no prayers. The gods we served had ears, but they rarely listened. We submerged. The sea here was heavier than elsewhere, not colder, older. The pressure wrapped around my ribs like a lover I had left behind and never quite escaped. Our lights flickered. The glyphs on our suits sparked against the salt. Shapes moved in the gloom. We swam on. Then a hand seized Anun. He screamed, bubbles rising. A figure wrapped around his legs, man-shaped, but gilled, scaled, and smiling. Two more swam from the shadows. Vareth bellowed, swinging his blade underwater. One of the things darted, bit, retreated. Blood clouded the water. I drew my blade, let the sea scream with us. The fight was thick and brutal. No footing, no breath, no mercy. I gutted one beneath the jaw, kicked free of another. By the time the current stilled, we were three once more, but Anun's arm hung limp, crimson bubbling from his suit. "They're changing," Vareth said, panting. "Still human, but not for long." "Are they townsfolk?" Anun rasped. "Or something else? Does it matter?" "No," I said. "Only that they're between us and the scroll." We surfaced in a narrow passage, lit with fungal blue. The stone was slick with seaweed. The scroll's aura was thick now, like thunder before the lightning. But I felt something else. We had been seen. "They'll be waiting," Vareth said. "Good," I said. Anun staggered against the wall, his breathing labored, blood still trickling from the torn seals of his gauntlet. "You're wounded," I said. He tried to shake his head, but his knees buckled slightly. "You cannot continue," I told him. "This path will only steepen, and we have no room for weakness, not even noble weakness. I can still—" "No." I stepped to him, firm. "You've done more than enough. Turn back. Return to the Second Ur. Tell them what happened here." He looked at me through the helm's cracked glass. "This mission will not be completed by strength alone," he said. "Then I will wield something worse." He hesitated, jaw tight, then nodded once. One dune, no drift. "Go." I watched him vanish into the dark, footsteps limping but steady. Vareth and I descended alone into the drowned sanctum of Yahantley. And though I had not spoken the words aloud, the truth curled beneath my tongue, like a spell left unsaid. We've been made. The sea spoke in silence now, not to my ears, to my bones. The scroll was close, too close. I saw no shadows, I saw no gods, but I knew. Innsmouth watches, and Innsmouth remembers. Chapter 7. Something Beyond the Veil. The factions had come by shadow and by silence, through trench and tide, through scripture and steel. They had not fought to reach this place, not with blades, not yet, but with subterfuge and speed, each hoping to claim the scroll unseen. They came in suits of iron and glyph-slicked canvas, their faces sealed behind domes of glass, breathing in whispers stolen from surface air. The Deep Ones did not need such armor, but the rest, Empire, Amun-Ra, intruders from distant kingdoms, all wore the marks of trespass. Rebreathers hissed, tubes pulsed. Each man and woman was a fragile spark in the crushing black of Yahantley. The chamber was vast and wrong, its shape unknowable, its boundaries unmeasured. Coral dripped from the ceiling like stalactites in decay. Pillars carved from living bone groaned in place. At its heart stood the pedestal, black basalt, polished smooth, upon which rested the scroll encased in a coffin of glass. Saphira entered first. Her breath slowed. Her eyes narrowed. Behind her came Vareth, blade drawn, armor slick with the damp of the deep. "Is this it?" he asked, voice cracking. "That thing, that is what we came for?" Saphira didn't answer. She was already moving, one step at a time. Each stride sent echoes spiraling through the room, like whispers remembered by the stone. High in the shadows above, Jedidiah Marsh watched her. Deep One guards lined the outer curve of the chamber, hiding in the coral's embrace. 50 of them, perhaps more. Guild, armored, silent. "Don't worry, sister," Jedidiah whispered. "I sealed it myself." Grace said nothing. She only laid a hand to the stone railing, her fingers twitching with unease. At the far end of the chamber, beyond a curtain of dripping kelp, MJ crouched with Silas and the last of their warriors. They had followed Saphira from the shadows, unseen and unheard. Silas leaned close. "We strike now." MJ held up a hand, face unreadable behind his visor. "No, let her take it. Let her bleed for it. Once she's clear of the sanctum, we take it back." They waited, watching. Saphira stepped before the glass. The scroll pulsed, not visibly, but in pressure, in weight, in some deep, ancestral memory that did not belong to her, but lived in her bones, all the same. She touched the casing. The glass cracked. "No," she breathed. It unsealed of its own accord. The scroll unraveled, slow, deliberate, and impossibly long, stretching across the altar like a serpent uncurling after ages of slumber. Symbols bled from its surface, ink that shimmered with movement, letters not written, but groan. The runes sang in a voice no tongue could carry. The chamber quaked. Jedidiah stood upright. "What is it doing?" he hissed. "I sealed it. I sealed it." Jedidiah's voice trembled. "She's from the sand. It's from the sand. They might be connected." And above, in the vast dark of the deep, something stirred. The clouds swelled outside the temple, black, massive, boiling. The water thickened, then darkened further still. And then he came, or something of him. Gata no Thoa, but not truly. Only a sliver, only a reflection, only a memory. He rose not from the water, but from the mind. A towering mass of flesh and decay, whose face was a scroll of parched leather, drawn over jagged bone and coiling worms. His beard writhed with blind serpents, his limbs flexed like the limbs of dead trees. His body pulsed, with tumors shaped like eyes that saw, that commanded. He made no sound, but all heard him. The chamber shook violently. Pillars cracked, coral shattered. Slabs of bone fell from the ceiling like divine punishment. The floor beneath Saphira's boots quaked. Cracks opened and bled salt water. Jedidiah stumbled backward. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. Grace pulled him down behind the railing. "Don't look at it." MJ braced himself. "Cover your eyes, now." But it was too late for some. Several of the Deep One guards fell where they stood, stiff as statues, their scales grayed, their joints locked. One warrior from Amun-Ra turned to stone mid-breath, frozen in a stance of prayer. Saphira stood nearest the scroll. It was killing her slowly. Her limbs grew heavy. Her joints began to seize. Her skin tightened across her frame like parchment drawn too taut. "Vareth," she croaked. "Shield your eyes. Don't watch me." He was already kneeling, head bowed. "I see him," he whispered, "and I feel peace." "Lies," Saphira hissed. "It's death. It's hunger in the shape of wisdom." She stumbled forward. The scroll twisted, shimmering. One of her knees locked. She felt it. The creeping rigor, the slow calcification. Her hands were becoming stone. "Not like this," she muttered. "Not here." With a final cry, she flung her shoulder into the pedestal. The scroll tumbled, struck the floor, and began to curl again, folding in on itself, the runes collapsing like a collapsing lung. As the final glyph vanished, the clouds above the water retreated, and Ghatanothoa with them. Silence. The chamber was a grave. Saphira fell to her knees, gasping. Vareth crawled to her, pulled her back into shadow. The Deep One guards circled them, but did not strike. They had seen. They had heard. They remembered. Across the chamber, MJ slammed a fist into the stone. "Gods damn it. There's no way to get to that scroll now. That stupid cow brought the ocean down on us." Silas was pale, trembling. "What now?" "We go back to the cathedral," MJ said. "We bring the military, and we bury this place." Silas nodded, still shaken. "You think it'll stay sealed?" "No," MJ said grimly. "But next time, it won't be her that opens it." Vareth helped Saphira to her feet. "What just happened?" he asked. "Why did he appear?" Saphira looked at him, voice like iron scraped over salt. "I don't know. The scrolls haven't been fully deciphered. Only the Lord of Preservation could ever summon Ghatanothoa, or so I thought." She looked to the sealed scroll, then to the cavern ceiling above. "That wasn't the god himself, Vareth. That was a shadow, a shallow memory, and still, it nearly turned the world inside out." She steadied herself. If that was only the echo... She didn't finish the thought. She didn't need to. Jedidiah stepped forward, cautious, his guards fanned wide around him. Vareth reached for his blade. "No," Saphira whispered. "Not now." She turned to her warriors. "You must go. Return to Amun-Ra. Tell Ashanti that I've been captured." They hesitated. "My lady." "Go." They ran. Jedidiah nodded slowly. Saphira breathed in silence, the scroll's pressure still lingering behind her eyes, like smoke behind glass. And above them, through the cracked dome of coral and kelp, the waters began to still. But no one in that chamber would ever forget what they saw. Not Ghatanothoa, not the scroll, not the silence that followed. Innsmouth casts no shadow on the ground. It casts it on the mind, and those who stand beneath it never stand the same again. Epilogue. Jack Sharp. The storm followed them home. It clung to the fuselage like an omen, howling through every rivet and seam as the plane knifed through black skies toward the granite towers of Miskatonic. Lightning danced across the wings like angry scripture. The clouds had not broken for 2 hours, and when they did, it was only to reveal worse beneath. The rooftop landing pad was half flooded, its red signal lights pulsing dimly through sheets of rain. Wind slammed across the roof like a beast denied entry. The plane's wheels shrieked as they struck, steam rising from the impact like breath from a dying god. When the hatch opened, it was as if the heavens screamed. Rain drove sideways, thick as blood and cold enough to burn. The pilot shouted something no one heard. Fatima al-Hazred stepped out first. Her cloak was soaked in seconds, her curls plastered to her skull like seaweed on a corpse. But she did not flinch. She looked up into that roaring sky, where no stars could be seen, and perhaps never would again, and said, low and bitter, "This is the cosmos screaming at us. We trespass into vaults not carved for men, and it will change us, not in glory, in ruin." Behind her, Albert Albright emerged, carrying the cocoon like a casket. It was not shaped like a man anymore. Jack twitched within, suspended in green anabiotic fluid, encased in a shell of translucent polymer. His skin had taken on a nacreous sheen. His lips were blue, his fingers longer. Something moved behind the slits of his neck. At the base of the pad, just inside the rusted blast doors, stood Professor Henry Armitage in a coat soaked dark as ink. 3 interns flanked him, each pale, wide-eyed, bearing vials and steel instruments untouched by the storm. "Professor," Fatima called, her voice nearly drowned by the wind. He stepped forward. "Bring him, now, before the weather decides to finish what the deep began." Albert moved without a word. His boots splashed through pooled rain and jet oil. He glanced up at the writhing sky, then muttered, more to himself than anyone else, "It could be Gata-no-Thoa. That kind of storm doesn't come from weather." A pause, then quieter still, though if it were truly him, there wouldn't be a rooftop left to land on. "Shouldn't we take him to a hospital?" Fatima shouted over the downpour. Armitage turned, rain coursing down his brow like war paint. No hospital would know what to name what's growing inside him. "I've already sent for Dr. Alan Halsey and Dr. Francis Morgan. The Miskatonic Infirmary is being prepared." The interns reached for the cocoon. It hissed as rain met its surface. Jack did not move, but his mouth opened, just slightly, and closed again, not in breath, in instinct. Fatima stared as they vanished into the building's depths. "What is he becoming?" she asked, barely a whisper. Armitage did not stop walking, something ancient and afraid to be alone. The storm howled as the doors slammed shut behind them. The rooftop emptied. The wind wept through the stone gargoyles, and the lightning made no sound. And inside the cocoon, Jack Sharp began to dream of pressure and fathoms and voices older than lungs, and deeper still, his mind slipped into realms where waking minds dare not tread. He wandered through silver forests that bled shadow, past towers carved from bone and madness, beneath skies lit by moons that had no names. There, the pale things gathered, not dead, not living, things that fed on memory and called nightmare their home. And far above them, on a throne of whispers, something watched, with 1,000 faces and none, with joy that sounded like madness. It did not speak. It did not need to. It had found him, and he had already begun to change.
If this tale stirred something in the dark corners of your mind, don't let it end here. Like the video, leave a comment, share it with those who dream strange dreams, and subscribe so you don't miss what's still to come. The world of Eldritch horror is vast, and its shadows run deep.